Away we go.
That's Steve. This is Al. It's episode 9, brought to you by.
Number 1.
Oh yeah, episode 1. Episode 1.
Of how are we? I don't know.
Well, yeah,
9-1.
Probably 4 segments. One of whatever.
How many do you do?
Leftover pizza from what? Is that Austin Pies again?
No. So this time I went to a place called Jets, and I think they have a couple locations here in Austin, and this one's on Barber Jordan. Don't quote me on that. There's this strip mall or whatever you want to call those things off of I-35 going up north, and they've got like if you know this area, it's got a Home Depot in there and Marshalls, and so that's where it's at in there, and it's really good. It's they have a Detroit pizza there, but they also have a thin crust that's very Midwestern Chicago style, very crispy. I've had other places that say it is, but it's this is the deal. They do have a place in here in Austin that has a deep dish that's very similar to Chicago deep dish, but this matches up perfectly with Chicago style thin crust. Now in the photos they had cut it in squares, but they put it in a triangle here, which next time I'm going to put in the notes, cut it in a square, as I'm used to in Chicago.
Be more authentic.
But it's a very crispy crust, even more so than they have next door here to me in Austin, our East Side Pies. But yeah, it's really good. I actually like it. And I went back to the pepper because if you were here last week, I had switched up with Italian sausage instead of pepperoni. But this time I went with the pepperoni, and I'm very pleased. So that's a
good.
lot to say about this food.
And I did Torchy's. I got a trailer park, which is just kind of fried chicken and stuff, and Baja shrimp, which pretty much like it sounds. They do good tacos. Not
if you're in Austin, I would. Yeah.
If you've never had it, it's good. It's not the most expensive, but not cheap either. But it's good food.
I get the brush fire every time. That is jerk chicken with the mango and a habanero sauce, and it's freaking brilliant.
And for some reason, that ties into our first segment, which is.
Hold on. Oh. We're back up here on the rooftop.
That's true.
That.
That's true.
It's a very nice day, and I don't know if we're going to be able to do this hardly at all in the summertime when it's going to be like a freaking 100 degrees up here. But
yeah, it's already 89 or something.
Right, so maybe we'll do one segment up here, and then there's some shade over there, but it's just nice to get outside.
True.
So yeah. So anyway, so go ahead.
Oh yeah, the first segment we were going to talk about the ice raids, and well, some of them are more like raids, and others I'm using the word entrapment because that's exactly what it is. The ones at the courthouses, literally, these are people who are doing everything they're supposed to be doing to become legalized citizens, and they're showing up for their court date, and then they're being conned into taking plea deals that allow ICE to then lock them up and send them away. I mean, it's crazy. San Antonio is the latest location where a bunch of this has been happening, but it's hardly the only one. It's just the latest one in the last 24 hours that's been getting a lot of press.
Okay, so I wasn't familiar with the aspect of getting conned and signing agreements where ICE could pick them up after. I was under the impression that they were just showing up because what I saw in the videos that I was looking at, even the lawyers weren't aware. They're like, the judge is signing the thing. Wait, just give me a minute. You have and it's almost like an abduction. So maybe there's both of those are going on, but I think in some instances they're just showing up. They somehow know ahead of time and someone's going to be there, and they're just showing up,
right,
and removing them. Now you're saying,
the central point though is that they're showing up for a legal proceeding that is part of how they're supposed to become a citizen.
But the discrepancy here is whether or not they're choreographing it beforehand.
Yeah, and that I'm not actually 100% sure about.
It's my understanding that's no. It's not like they're setting them up and saying, "Hey, show up here," and and then they arrest them like they were.
I think in some cases that might be, but not necessarily in all cases.
Right, I think they're just showing up. They're finding out who. In some cases, like if you know more about this, come tell us, man. Put it in the comments and tell us what's going on. But either way, it's despicable behavior, and this has nothing. Look, when they sold this bullshit, they were saying they're going after the criminals, right? And they said that they were just going to go after people that, first of all, the criminals, because they touted these people as rapists and vermin and
murderers, etc.
And even to the extent of they're changing the gene pool. I mean, this absolute racist slurs. So yeah, and that's and
But then it gets worse. First, it got worse because, okay, it looks like they're only just going after people whose only crime is being here illegally, right? But now, in the case of what we just presented, we're looking at people who, yes, they're not full-on citizens, but they're doing the legal procedures to become citizens, which means they don't really fall into that category of, well, gee, we should go after them because they're illegal, because they're not. It's that gray area of they're doing what they're supposed to be,
Right. So once again, this goes back to what is the real intention? What was their real intentions to begin with that language about how they were described? They just want to get rid of brown people, period, or Middle Easterns, or anyone who doesn't fit their mold, fit into their little box they want everyone to fit into, which is basically a white Christian nationalist. At least if you're, part of the heritage thing. And for Trump, it's just to be cool and mean. He doesn't care. He doesn't give a shit about anything.
He wants people to be afraid.
Yeah, he just wants people to be afraid.
I mean, the funny thing is, apparently, there are fewer people being deported at the moment than there were under Biden. It's just they're being deported under different circumstances through different means and procedures. Yeah.
But, so yeah, this had nothing to do whatsoever, once again, with stopping crime, the non-existent crime, because violent crime is pretty much down across the board. And if you look at statistically, people that are here legally or illegally or in the process, let's say, commit far less crimes, especially when it comes to violent crimes, than any other segment of the population. So,
for any number of reasons, but partly just because they know that if something does come up, they could risk being deported.
They want to stay under the radar.
They like you said, they want to stay under the radar.
Occasionally, some criminal gets in.
Oh yeah,
of course, but you're not going to stop.
But it's not a wave of stuff. It's not an epidemic or whatever.
This whole idea behind this is to stop crime or anything else that they're trying to claim it is just absolute nonsense, obviously. And it's and it's just apparent in how they're going about it, because they're not taking people that are coming in for criminal offenses and then seeing if they're
which would be the logical way if they were doing what they claim to be doing.
At that point, they are already going through habeas corpus because they've been arrested, and they're getting. And then, okay, yeah, if they're criminals, deport them. That makes sense. So what? That's not what they're doing. They're not even coming close to doing that. They're just picking up people, not even giving them habeas corpus. They're not even giving them due process, and they're going to their places, where they're actually going to try to get, and I was going to bring it up that they're also showing up to people's workplaces. They're showing up to construction sites. They're showing up to restaurants, and there's a lot of videos going around. I saw the construction site. I can't remember where it was, where they're rounding up people, and yeah, they rounded up a bunch of dudes. And guess what? They arrested one guy. And all this terror, like what people running, screaming, all these guys decked to the nines, like they're going into some military operation, and in Iraq or something, like. Going into a mall or something. Like, it's so ridiculous. These guys are dressed up like it's gonna be like these guys are just wannabes. It's so funny. And these criminal fascist thugs running around, and trying to be tough guys, thinking they're doing something when all they're doing is being in a bunch of brown shirts. And
they can't even show their faces.
They can't even show their faces because they know what they're doing. It's gonna get them in trouble. But they're such wimps that they're okay of doing it to someone else, but God forbid somebody recognize you and then terrorize you for being a terrorist. So, yeah. So then there was another one in San Diego where they raided this Italian restaurant, and it was. And then the video was so disturbing because once again they're dressed up like they're coming into like some war zone or something just to pick up some, somebody, the dishwasher at the back of a restaurant and the waitress, and people are screaming and they're putting their kids and they're like, oh no, don't worry. And then, and there's one woman had this video where her kid's crying and like, what's going on, Mom? What's going on? And then they started throwing flash bombs because the crowd.
Oh, and they've been putting kids in zip ties.
Yeah, and putting kids in zip ties, and so and. It's pure terrorism, and then so they have they're doing all this stuff, and then this is the thing that I find instead of disheartening, but heartening. I like this idea that the community was coming out, like all the people from the restaurant, from the neighborhood, and just yelling and berating and screaming at these ICE agents, and telling them basically, you're kidnapping people. You're a terrorist, and this is not right, and why don't you show your faces? And I think if this continues, people are going to start, fighting back. In large groups, crowds. I've seen other videos where it's happening in neighborhoods where people just start creating mayhem. And I wouldn't be surprised if this gets to a point where people just start arming themselves and then just literally having standoffs with them and saying, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Because if this continues, that is what will happen. People will form militias and they will just say, you come into my neighborhood, you come into our neighborhood and you act like this. You have no warrants, you have no jurisdiction, you have no justification. You're obeying the orders of somebody that judge told them to stop doing, and you're doing it anyways because you're a sick man. You're a sick human being. It's so disturbing to see this shit. And I even see some minorities, talking to these people, and they're part of this, and it's just like, man, what kind of shit twisted? You think they're not going to come for you? Turn on you? You're an useful idiot, and you deserve it more than anyone if you get tossed out of here.
Turning on your own people, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah.
How ridiculous is that? I'm not probably a vast majority, because it's all a bunch of white dudes who want to be something because they're pathetic human beings, and this is a way for them to flex their fucking fragile egos, but they're actually doing something in life, and they're just ridiculously pathetic pieces of shit. So yeah, that's my attitude about ICE agents. You're a fucking thug. You're a kidnapper. You're a horrible, despicable human being.
I only had one last thought on you were giving me a little bit of a hard time about not hearing about the Italian restaurant thing.
I just said, heck, surprised you haven't seen it.
What it is like yesterday, for example, I somewhat deliberately took myself offline for more hours than normal.
Well, that's good.
And I think, and I think that's why I didn't see it.
It's new.
And that's the thing is that tenuous line between, oh my God, am I not caught up with everything, versus, oh my God, I'm going nuts because I'm caught up with everything and it's crazy.
If you went online today, you would have seen it.
Yeah.
So don't worry about it.
Right.
You just happened to miss one thing that I said. So.
That was my last point on it. I mean, other than that, if you guys are not aware of this, you need to catch yourself up, and if you are, you need to. Yeah, I don't know. Just let us know your thoughts on it. I guess.
Let us know your thoughts. We're not getting very many comments. I mean, we're getting some views.
We're starting to get more and more, but yeah, I mean, are we mostly still doing this for ourselves? Yeah, but there's always the idea that we're trying to get this out there and get some conversation going.
Look, I understand that the vast majority of people that might even come across this, we're just preaching to the choir. They already know this, and they're probably just skimming through, and maybe they'll hit the like. And we got
yeah, and we're getting the likes and not views. It just
and the reposts and things like that. But if you got a comment, if you can add to what we're saying, please do. As long as it's not you're not being a troll, and we'll just delete the comment. And if we do respond, it's just to ridicule, make fun of you, and call you an idiot. That's it. We've already said that.
So you've been warned.
You've been warned. You go ahead and make a comment. If it's something I don't like, it's my fucking shit, and I'm gonna delete it. I may or may not. We probably won't.
It depends.
We won't
If it's mostly civil, we might actually leave it and/or comment, respond to it. And if it's just MAGA, trolling, we'll delete it.
Anything, if you're contradicting anything we're saying or defending some kind of point, and I highly doubt that it's going to make any sense. So highly doubt it. So don't bother if it's questionable. But if you got some reasonable response to something, or I'm inaccurate in something I'm saying, and it's really inaccurate, and you can prove that it's inaccurate, and with not some bullshit or talking point, and it's not some hype piece, go ahead, throw it in there, and we'll respond if it's accurate.
But most of what we've talked about is in general terms, in response. I mean, in response to multiple stories that we've watched, not like a single story when we're going to talk about that. No, but like we've seen dozens of stories, videos, whatever, talking about these issues, so much so that it's like, no, if it was one story, somebody might have made it up, but this is all over the place.
Right, it's indisputable.
Yeah.
So, I guess the point is, what they're doing is, if it's not just outright illegal and they don't have these warrants, or when they're coming into these courts, outrageously despicable.
It's definitely immoral. There's
It's
no
immoral,
question about
and
that. Yeah.
and the individuals that are actually going ahead and just saying, "Well, this is my orders," or however they're justifying it in their mind, it is atrocious, and they're just despicable human beings.
Yep.